Here was one of David Pecker's final moments with prosecutors when he was questioned by the prosecution about why he bought and then killed Playboy playmate Karen McDougal's story about her alleged affair with Trump. Prosecutor Joshua Steinglass. Had you published a story about a Playboy model having a year-long sexual affair while he was married with a presidential candidate, would that have sold magazines, do you think? Pecker, yes. Steinglass. That would be like National Enquirer gold? Pecker, yes. Steinglass. But at the time that you entered into that agreement, you had zero intention of publishing that story? Pecker, that's correct. Steinglass. And despite the fact that publishing that story would have helped your bottom line, you killed the story because it helped the candidate Donald Trump. Pecker, yes. Pretty damaging testimony there. The defense team then tried to poke holes in it by suggesting that the National Enquirer killed the McDougal story not to help Donald Trump, but to help Karen McDougal. Defense attorney Emile Bovey. And you were very clear on cross-examination that Miss McDougal did not want to publish that story, right, David Pecker? That is correct. Bovey. She wanted to promote her name and her brand, correct? Pecker, yes. Bovey. She, Karen McDougal, was a legitimate celebrity at that time, right? Pecker. Let me say this. Did she meet the celebrity category at that time? No. There were reportedly audible chuckles in the courtroom after that happened. It was not what you would call a highlight moment for the defense. In fact, to be honest, from my perspective, almost none of it so far has seemed all that great for Donald Trump. I mean, maybe you don't need a clear strategy and a compelling narrative when the job is simply to get jurors to believe in some kind of reasonable doubt. Or maybe this is what happens when you're working with an impossible client and kind of doing a bad job. What does a competent defense strategy look like in this trial? Well, as it turns out, I have just the people to ask. Joining me now, Andrew Weissman, former senior member of Robert Mueller's special counsel, and Anna Bower, legal fellow and courts correspondent at Lawfare. A pleasure to have you both here on set. First of all, I am totally honest about being the layman in all of this. I will just say, Andrew, from what I have seen, I think, anybody who's even casually watching this understands what the story the prosecution is trying to tell. It seems like a scattershot series of defense maneuvers on the other side, though. And I wonder, from your perspective, whether the asymmetry there matters.
It does. What people say when they look at trials is you're looking for who has the better compelling narrative. And I don't mean that to denigrate defense counsel. I mean, they have an important job to do. And sometimes there isn't a compelling narrative. And what you are stuck with is sort of laying out a sort of variety of, it's like a box of chocolates.
Yes.
Like, okay, the memory is bad. Okay, if you don't think the memory is bad, he's a liar.
Or Karen McDougal's the one you wanted to catch and kill for.
Exactly. Or it didn't really matter because you would have done this all anyway. I mean, you sort of lay out a bunch of things, and sometimes you also are very theatrical. And so it's sort of by style, you sort of are say, look over here, so that you sort of distract. But that's where somebody like Josh Steinglass, who's such an experienced trial lawyer, I mean, he sort of lives and breathes trials. He knows exactly what he's going to do on redirect, and a good prosecutor gets the jury back to, let's just focus on key things and come up with what's the best question to ask to get to the point. It's actually very similar to what you do, which is how do we, in a short amount of time, how are we trying to focus? And the sort of National Enquirer gold is something that you're going to hear. That sort of, sometimes you consider certain answers jury lines that is something you are going to hear again, because it just makes no sense that you would not publish the story
if it was
but for having this agreement. And that narrative is one that, if you're the defense, you kind of need to lean into that and say, okay, whatever happened here, maybe Stormy Daniels was different. But you have to, I think, to be totally credible, it's better to pick your battles.
Yeah, and you mentioned offhandedly, and it sounds like it didn't resonate that much, the attempt to undermine Pecker's credibility. Anna, you were in the overflow room. And I just wonder, for all of us who aren't really seeing this, it's hard to know how something lands. Can you talk more about that attempt on the part of the defense?
Right. So there were a lot of efforts today to undermine Pecker's credibility by, for example, looking at prior inconsistent statements that he's allegedly made. But they really didn't land because many of these so-called inconsistencies were, in fact, very marginal and immaterial. They were things that could be explained by the context. So, for example, at one point, defense counsel tried to say, oh, in this FBI report in which the FBI had these notes, they wrote that you said one thing, but then you said at trial yesterday that you said another thing. And, you know, David Pecker really pushed back on that on the stand and said, well, you know, I'm not responsible for what the FBI wrote in their notes. I did not say that. And I know what I said. I know what happened. And it was the truth. And it really just was another moment, in addition to, you know, the moments you just mentioned with the celebrity kind of comment where he pushed back on that, too, where things just weren't landing for defense counsel. Also, the cross-examination went on extremely long. And it's the kind of thing where, you know, jurors, from what I have seen this week in court, I was in overflow today, but I've been in court watching the jurors. They've all been very attentive. But the way that things were going today, it's the kind of thing that a juror who is in for a long trial just doesn't appreciate, this focus on minor immaterial inconsistencies. It's something that kind of, you know,
you lose them.
Yeah, you lose them. Exactly.
I just Pecker as a witness overall, we talk so much about how central Michael Cohen was to all of this, but because David Pecker is involved in all of these, almost all of this, right, is talking with Michael Cohen and Donald Trump about this, is a very strong witness, at least to on the outside, it seems, on the stand. I just wonder, you know, how much he is really undergirded a very strong argument in advance of Michael Cohen's testimony.
So there are a couple things that are so great about him as a first witness. So first, you get the real sense that is principle and principle. David Pecker, Donald Trump. Michael Cohen is a staffer, to use that's Nicole Wallace's term, give her credit. I mean, he's not a principal in this. You have the National Enquirer and you have Donald Trump. They are making the decisions. And so that is important. And he tells you how it began, how it was carried out, and how it ended. He also gives you why it's a felony and also why you should care. And what I mean by why it's a felony, remember that this would be a misdemeanor if it's not to conceal or further some other crime.
Right.
And he tells you it's election fraud.
It's
I mean,
full
this is like he gives you that up one side and down the other. So the only piece that's really missing is the sort of false business records. And so the piece that you still need is that there obviously are false business records, but you need to have knowledge that Donald Trump knew that that would have to be part of the scheme. That shouldn't be that hard, because if you're trying to keep this secret, and David Pecker has already said he wanted to keep it secret even within the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
He didn't want people to know about this. Why? Because it's a crime. And so you're not going to want to have a whole bunch of records saying, oh, this is the scheme.
The
that we're
crime
doing.
receipt.
Right. Exactly.
I do, you know, what is also so interesting is we're talking about Rona Graff, who's like, we played the early Apprentice tape. This is someone who's like Donald Trump's sidekick on The Apprentice. And David Pecker, who says he's still friends with Donald Trump. And I wonder, from a sort of the jury's perspective, how meaningful is it that two of his friends are taking the stand to offer not supportive evidence against him? And also, on his wife's birthday, the wife for whom he's lying and creating these elaborate scenarios, she's not there. None of the family's been in the courtroom.
Yeah, I think actually this is a really great point, and it's one of the things that I think made Pecker's testimony so powerful over the past week. Of course, the defense counsel has indicated that they're going to attack the credibility of Michael Cohen and of Stormy Daniels, and they are going to portray them as people who are biased and who are kind of out to get Trump. But with David Pecker, one of the last things that he testified to on direct is that actually he has very warm feelings towards Donald Trump. He called him a mentor figure who had helped him in his career. You could tell he had some real affection for him. And so this is a guy who is basically the kind of a key witness in setting out the scene and giving you the world of this scheme of hush money payments. And yet he is still sitting there telling you, like, I don't harbor any ill, feelings towards Donald Trump. I'm just here to tell the truth. And that's what I think made him such a powerful starting witness.
I mean, with friends like these, Andrew, who needs enemies? It does bring me, though, to the gag order, which we have not gotten a decision on. And I wonder what, I think the next hearing is going to be on May 2nd, which surprises, I think, everybody I've talked to. Is there a strategy behind this, do you think, on the part of Judge Merchan, or is this he's just taking his time?
Well, you have to remember he may be thinking this is sort of a sword of Damocles over Donald Trump. So he's got to be thinking. Is it, though?
I mean, he's still saying things.
He is, although, you wonder how much. I mean, I do think he has a number of things that he can do in addition to finding him. Obviously, he could put him in jail, but I think no one thinks that will be the first step. One of the things that I've been advocating is, in addition to finding, that he committed this contempt, is he can, certainly with respect to texting and Truth Socials, he can turn to, let's say, Susan Neklace, who is a responsible defense lawyer, and say, you know what, you're in charge now. All of those things have to run through you. Essentially put a monitor in place. Because that's really the harm, right? The harm is that his saying this stuff, and essentially it's like there's going to be, you have a babysitter now, and that's what's going to happen. Another idea, which is Neil Kochil's idea, is that he finds the contempt and says, I want you to know I am going to sentence you after the trial, and I'm going to see what happens between now and then. And also, then this
talk about a sword of Damocles.
Right, and then Ryan Goodman's idea is, and I want you to know, not only can I consider this in connection with contempt, but if you are convicted, I can consider all of this behavior when I sentence you.
Wow.
So these are all things that you can do to try and basically have him not harm the jurors and the witnesses.
This is far more creative than anything I had heard recently, Andrew Weissmann.
It takes a village.
It takes a village to